Right, friends. Hello again. It's been a little time. There's been a little bit of time since I last spoke to you. My apologies. I am very, very busy. But anyway, Stephen Manning from Integrity Ireland, for those of you who may not know me. And today, the title is LAWFARE Incorporated, with the play on the word lawfare, warfare. Yeah, in other words, I want to share with you today a personal example of how the law has been weaponized against the people, how many of the people who are supposed to be administering and supervising the law are in fact, as the title says, no more than parasites, predators, professionals, of course, and amoral prostitutes. Strong words, guys, but in fact, that's what it's all about. It's all about money. They sell their souls, their integrity, their knowledge, their technical know-how to the highest bidder, basically. And as we'll see towards the end of this slide, with a few comments on the ongoing barrister strike in Ireland and what perhaps you and I and others should be doing about that, okay? But I want to start off here, guys. We'll pull up the first slide, and yeah, let's see if I don't want to get too big. 1 second, guys. So there we are. LAWFARE Incorporated, how professional predators, parasites, and moral prostitutes in the legal system get rich at our expense. And the incident we're going to discuss today, guys, it's to do with myself personally, because I can speak about that with firsthand knowledge. And some of you may have heard some of this story before, but if not, please just bear with me. As you can see here, I think it's number 49, is it? Number 49 on the list. It says Manning versus a judge of the circuit court. Now, this very simply, I was notified through a third party, mind you, that they'd seen my name on this list. And to my surprise, this is the re-emergence of an appeal that was unlawfully shut down in the Irish High Courts. You say unlawfully, those of you who are perhaps new to this and still think that the so-called authorities have any sort of scruples or ethical standards, just stand by and just follow what's happening, okay? So I was told that there was going to be a hearing. Now, frankly, it didn't suit me to have to go there in person. I almost know what to expect now, as will be proven to you shortly. So having got this notification, I then sent a message, which I hope I can pull up large enough here to read to you. This is to the lady. I just said I want to put it in writing for the record that I've tried to join on the day using the link you send me, noting that I am number 49 on the list. But all I am getting is a repeat voice message, quote, waiting for the conference host to join. This suggests that the host, i.e. the court service and/or the court itself, has not yet joined the live stream. I am confused. I will wait 30 more minutes to see if I get any response either by email or live link. And if nothing comes in by 11:40 in the morning, I must presume that something is amiss and will consider the matter adjourned to another time and date. Thanking you in advance. What I'd like you to notice here, guys, okay, is the way I framed this. I keep advising people the problem we're all facing is that the authorities, the so-called authorities, many of whom should literally for personal, psychological, moral, and technical reasons, they should be nowhere near any positions of authority. But many of them that are abusing their positions with such regularity and without any scruples or concern for the rest of us, that at every opportunity we can do so, we should take the power off them. Now, this is my way of beginning to take power off them. I'm saying, look, I followed the link that you sent me. It's not connecting for me. I've got better things to be doing with my time than sitting around whilst you, the court service, who are supposed to be an efficient government body, can't even facilitate my appeal. It's my appeal after all, not theirs, mine. Excuse me. So interestingly, right after this, and by the way, I've since been told that when they do what they call the call-over list, which is reading out all the people who are due to appear that day, they skipped over my name. Interesting, right? You'll see why in a moment. So a minute later, literally, I got cut off from the stream. So I said, again, Amy, this is the lady at the court service I was dealing with. Don't know her personally. Just for the record, a minute after sending the previous email, I was cut from the online link. So it appears that the court service received my email. I think their original intention was hoping that I wouldn't turn up, and they just skip me altogether and deal with the thing in my absence or something, okay? I will keep trying to connect until 11:40, but after that I have important things to attend to. Interestingly then, I got a response. We will be online again shortly, and you will be able to access the court once the virtual meeting room is unlocked. Kind regards. Now remember, guys, I'm number 49 on the list. Why am I not being allowed in? As if for example, if I'd have turned up in person, I'd have been sitting in the body of the court whilst all of these callovers were read out, you know, the people on the list who had been read out, and I'd have gone, yes, I'm here, all right. I was being denied that facility, and you've got to ask yourself why. It should become clear in a minute. So with that then, we get to Justice George Birmingham, who is the president of the Court of Appeal. He is in the book we published, Criminality in the Irish Courts and the Absence of the Rule of Law. You know, I hesitate to, to use personal insults. But the truth of the matter is that most of Irish judges, at least definitely, almost without exception, all of the judges I've had personal dealings with, and it's at least a third of the sitting judges in Ireland, some have since retired, and probably another third that I've heard direct accounts of. So that's at least 2/3 of the sitting judges in Ireland are proving themselves to be, frankly, utterly disreputable individuals. They shouldn't be anywhere near a courthouse except in the dock, is what I keep saying. Here's another example here. Now, I'll pull this up a little bit because I want to show you something. Well, before I do this, and I hope this works, I'm going to play a recording here in a second, guys. It's only 3 minutes, all right? This is what happened when I, and of course, this is the trouble trying to do this, so many bells and whistles, you know. I'm going to try and find this recording here, 1 second. But while I'm doing so, let me, oh Lord, oh yes, hold on a minute. Yeah, we've got it here. 1 second, guys, please, 1 second. Here we are. Now let's hope this plays. I can't see myself at the moment. If it does, it's less than 3 minutes, guys. Please just listen. Let's hope it plays. We'll start it now. This is
2019, as I understand it. You were asked to clarify what was happening with this appeal and what was the actual subject of the appeal. You never did that. So may I take it that this appeal is now at an end?
No, Mr. Birmingham. I think we need to clarify a couple of things for the record, starting with the fact when I was last before you, you actually exited your courtroom when I asked you some straightforward questions. Now, there was a whole bundle of different cases that were overlapping, interlinked, that had been joined and co-joined, and then Judge Michael McGrath forged he changed the title on the proceedings, and it had a cascading effect. When I asked you at the time, if you remember, this was November, I believe, November 2019, and I asked you, please...
Well, Manning, I don't want to be rude. I don't remember, and I'm not really concerned about that. All I want to find out now is this appeal going to proceed? And if it is, when is it going to proceed?
Well, you see, the problem we have, Mr. Birmingham, is that when judges don't abide by the law, it causes problems for us. No, just a minute. I haven't finished. Please. Now, either I have a right to speak or I don't, Mr. Birmingham. Now, I want to make the point on the record, please. I want to make this point on the record. I couldn't be there today. No, if I was there, sir, I would continue to speak. Last time you walked out on me. No, just a minute, please. You walked out of me. I don't know what the protocol will be here, whether I'll get cut off or something. But the fact is, I asked you to clarify what the title on the proceedings were, and you refused to do so. And I tried to explain to you that I was being blocked from going ahead.
No recollection of
Well, it was
but I'm happy to tell you that the proceedings that are before me, certainly the note I have, and all I have is a note. It's entitled Stephen Manning against a judge of the Circuit Court.
Well, it was Judge Sean O'Donovan, and I objected to having his name removed from those proceedings as well. He'd engaged in criminal activity. Now, the point was, Mr. Birmingham.
Dr. Manning.
No, hold on a minute. Either you want me to answer the question or you don't. No, just a minute. No, I'm not agreeing to you speaking over me, Mr. Birmingham. Okay? I'm not agreeing to it. Okay? Please listen. You haven't let me. You're trying to listen. Don't be giving instructions to your class there without listening to what I have to say. Please. Now, yeah. So now I've been cut off. Yeah, disconnected from the room. Okay. So, all right, guys. I hope that's on the record. Thank you.
All right, friends. So, as I said to you, less than 3 minutes. Now, a couple of things to point out here is just, first of all, what he did was totally unlawful. Yeah, it's my appeal. Yeah, I lodged these papers, and we'll go into a little bit of the detail in a moment when you see what I ended up sending back to the court service. In response to asking them, but this was a criminal act on the part of a sitting judge, the president of the Court of Appeal. The fact that he retired literally 2 weeks later may have something to do with it. It's another traditional trick that you'll find judges being put onto controversial cases or, difficult to deal with cases as their sort of parting gift to the establishment, and they do something outrageous and ridiculous with it, and then they retire on their golden pensions, So in this particular instance, guys, as you just saw, you can see, and I don't want to bog you down in unnecessary detail, so I'll just keep it as simple as this. You can see the original title on the proceedings here, guys, is underlined there in red, Stephen Manning versus Circuit Court Judge Sean O'Donovan, all right? And there's the reference number next to it. Very simply, what the High Court Judge McGrath did, backed up by this fellow here, well, let's say backed up, they literally, each one of them has gotten up and run out of their courts when we have established that they are actually breaking the law, violating their own codes of conduct, oaths of office, courts' rules, and the law and the Constitution. And they just brazenly barrel ahead anyway, because they're surrounded, aren't they, by tiers and tiers of civil servants, court service staff, compliant Gardaí who will just, yes, sir, no, sir, I'm just doing my job, and all sorts of minions, toadies and lackeys, including the legal profession, who it's a very rare exception indeed when we ever hear of a solicitor or a barrister actually standing up to genuine injustice being perpetrated by these unscrupulous, unprincipled moral prostitutes, which is what they are, guys. They're selling their consciences, their souls, the concept of justice in order to be rewarded by the establishment. But anyway, very simply, that title there, I was going ahead with an appeal. It was about them throwing me in jail back in 2017 unlawfully, which they did to stop me prosecuting guards for physically assaulting me and erasing evidence, which appears to be a commonplace occurrence now. It's called criminal damage. You can get 10 years in jail for it if it's you or I. And when I went, and Michael McGrath, judge of the High Court, changed this title without being asked to do so and without anyone making an application. And the reason he did it was to try and shut down the case by changing the title on it, bringing in an order under the new title. When he did so, I said, hold on a minute, Judge McGrath, that's not the right title. You've now created two sets of proceedings for the same case. It's going to cause, merciless confusion, and it'll be impossible to pursue. So I made an appeal against him doing that, and this so-and-so, pretending not to remember, which, as I say in the next slide, is that memory loss or lies, Judge Birmingham? Because if it's memory loss, you shouldn't be a judge. And if it's lies, you shouldn't be a judge. In either case, you shouldn't be a judge. On top of that, of course, he was politically appointed by Fine Gael. But this document here on the right is the one he's reading from. Now, he knows exactly what's going on. This document was compiled by a barrister called Oisin Clarke. We'll come to him in a moment. And I'm not going through the rest of the document here. It's just, like, again, please just take my word for it, guys. But basically, you see here, it's Stephen Manning versus a judge of the circuit court. Now, it has the same serial number on the case, but they've changed the title. And the truth of the matter was, when I went, first of all, to the Court of Appeal and then to the Supreme Court to appeal against this fraudulent act committed by a High Court judge, and again, it was all smoke and mirrors, just designed to obfuscate and confuse and delay and stop me proving that guards, solicitors, court service staff and agents out of the DPP office had all committed perjury, and I was applying to have them put in jail, you know, attachment and committal and everything, plus a judge out of the district court. They had to stop it somehow. So this is what they do. They go in and they just violate all of their own rules and regulations and do something like this. So I had made an appeal, and then they prevented the appeal going ahead on the grounds that the title did not match the order, the fraudulent order that McGrath. And I said, that's what I'm appealing against, you fools, you idiots. That's exactly what the appeal is about. He should not have done this in the first place. And on that technicality, on the paperwork, they basically more or less said, we're not accepting this unless you write down the fraudulent title. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be a party to McGrath's fraud. He needs to be sanctioned, jailed, or whatever for violating the court rules and superior court rules and everything. Of course, this is what they do. I wasn't supposed to know about this hearing, you see. All right. And eventually, by the way, they shut down that whole that whole judicial review. There was two of them linked together. Shut it down by putting an article in the Irish Times about a hearing that allegedly happened that it literally never happened. But there's an article in the Irish Times in May 2018 saying Manning's case has been thrown out in a ruling read out by Judge McGrath today. First of all, no one told me about it. Secondly, when I checked, I was told the judge wasn't even in the court that day. So that means Mary Carolyn from the Irish Times was making up a cock and bull story based on a report at very best she got from the court service and published it just before she got promoted to be the legal affairs correspondent. You know what? This is how the system works, guys. Okay, let's keep it moving anyway. Again, I can't see the slides in advance. Oh, here we go. Hold on, did I jump too far forwards? No. Okay, add to the stage, yeah. So here we go. So the next slide, I just want to show you, so these are just some of the judges involved. Top left, George Birmingham. Middle, Charles Meenan. Right, McGrath, Michael McGrath. Bottom left, Colin Daly. Some of these guys, oh dear. And in the middle at the bottom there, Donal O'Donnell, our Chief Justice at the moment, top judge in the country. They're all mentioned in this book, guys. They've all got their photographs in it, the crimes they've committed. And it's just carry on regardless. Nobody cares. That book was published, I believe, in, 2020, I think. But in there, we named 40 judges, a lot of them High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court judges, for actively committing crimes whilst they know they're doing it in their own courtrooms, under their own jurisdiction. And there's just no way to hold them to account because they've staffed the judicial oversight body with their own toadies and lackeys so that, you know, it's all cycle. And this is the main point I'm trying to make here today. And I know I've emphasized this point many times over the years, but these authorities, so-called authorities, are not to be trusted. These institutions are not to be trusted. There's reasons for that. I cover it in other videos, the mechanics of evil, how people who already are inclined towards sociopathic and exploitative and deceitful behavior tend to move up the ladder most quickly in these institutions by protecting the institution over their sworn mandates to the public. Okay, so to go into this now, I will pull this up. So what happened next, guys? I sent this email to the court service. Okay, I'll read it, the important parts. I wish to further note for the record that I was cut off from discussing my appeal hearing some 3 minutes into my exchange with George Birmingham, appeal court president, who, you'll note, guys, while I was talking to him, I kept calling him Mr. Birmingham. Again, you take the power off them. And if he argues, oh, it's judge, I'll say, well, you're not acting like a judge, are you? And you're in my, criminality in the Irish courts book. I didn't even want to deal with him in the first place, but what can you do? You can't control everything, of course, He persistently talked over me, stated he couldn't recall this or that, and eventually, apparently, gave instructions to court service staff to cut me from the live stream. This is unlawful. Accordingly, I need immediate clarity, please, as to who directed that my live stream be cut. Thank you. I hope it's not necessary to remind all involved that if and when judges give unlawful instructions, no one is obliged to comply. Obviously not. Naturally, I need an immediate update on the status of that appeal. Thank you. Any failure to respond by 2 p.m. today will be taken as a refusal. Why? Take the power off them again. Don't sit there twiddling your thumbs, waiting for some lackadaisical, court service staff member to decide, oh, well, I'll get back to that in a few days. No, you put them on the spot. If I don't hear from you by 2 o'clock, I'm going to assume that's a refusal, and the appropriate action will be taken, etc., etc. Then, in other words, you take the power back, seize the initiative, take it back. Okay. So that was my thing, and I got this response then from the court service. Let's see it again, a little bit larger. With regards to your query concerning the video link, I was surprised to get this, guys. President Birmingham gave instructions to court service staff and registrar to cut the link. So they're admitting it. They don't even seem to be worried about putting it in writing, that it was this judge ordered you cut off from your own appeal. Because the only way we can hold them to account is, first of all, go through the Judicial Conduct Committee or go up through the Supreme Court. You've got to exhaust all domestic remedies, you see, first, guys. If you want to go to the European Court of Human Rights, for example, which is another farce, but you have to exhaust all domestic remedies according to their rules. That's why I'm suggesting we need to start inventing our own rules and applying them instead, because their rules are all made to suit their nefarious agenda. So I said, so with regards to your query, she says, regarding the status of the above, this case was listed for mention before Birmingham on the 22nd of November 2019, true, where the court directed that you clarify exactly what part of the order you wish to appeal. That's an outrageous, blatant lie, because Birmingham ran out of his court with me calling after him. Is that the best you've got? You get up and run out again whenever I ask a difficult question. Then apparently she's been told this was to be done by filing submissions limited to 5,000 words. If and when submissions were filed, the appeal could be given a hearing date, but there has been no activity since then. Another lie, absolute lies. I even took criminal charges against them for what they did, which are still sitting unactivated up there. They just do what they want, guys. As of today, where the appeal was listed in the dormant review list, the direction of the president is that your appeal is struck out. So he's unilaterally ruled over the top of my head without allowing me to speak properly. And he's giving me liberty to re-enter upon filing a motion to reinstate the appeal grounded on affidavit. All this means, guys, for those who aren't familiar with court rules, I've got to jump through half a dozen different hoops and then filing a submission clarifying exactly what part of the order you wish to appeal in compliance with the court's previous directions as above. That's another lie. Those instructions never issued out of the court. It's an absolute dirty lie concocted after the fact in order to suit their devious agenda. So I then wrote back, dear unknown Court of Appeal staff, because again there was no signature on it, noting in the first place that your response again bears no signature. Isn't that curious? That happens a lot to me. We will need you, whoever you are, first of all, to clarify who you are as per normal professional protocols. Thank you. And there's section 8.1 of the Civil Service Code of Standards and Behaviours requires them to identify themselves when dealing with members of the public or the Republic. Yeah. And they regularly don't do this, even after you remind them. They just, they know they can get away with it. As for the remainder of your message, we embed our responses below, again, for the record and for the avoidance of any possible doubt. In circumstances whereby there is so much shameful trickery, tomfoolery, and outright deception being engaged in by, in my case, by certain members of the judiciary and by their toadies and lackeys in the court service, as to beggar belief. Yes, I come back at them with a bit of a, a little bit of a punch on the nose, like, yeah, you're supposed to identify yourself, first of all. Secondly, because you've sent me a response, I'm going to respond back to you. But just think of all the time and effort that's put into this, guys, when we could be doing so many better things with our lives than dealing with these, like I said, these career liars and moral deviants, you know. And of course, this woman is just doing her job. So I'm going to read now, guys, and I hope you can bear with me for this. It's just one response. It's about 5 slides, but I would like you to just pay attention, and of course, freeze these and read them for yourself afterwards if you wish, and look at the way that I approach what they're doing, and then publicize how you respond to them, so that at least in this torturous series of unlawful, devious exchanges with these career criminals, at least you draw some material out of it that you can share with others for everybody else's edification. Because the sooner we all understand that not only these systems can't be trusted, but most of the people, certainly anybody ascending the ranks in these systems, is only doing so out of either turning a blind eye to the corruption or by being actively complicit in it. It's that simple. And those of you who work in these systems know what I'm saying is absolutely true. Those of you still on the ground levels or on the lower ranks have some excuse that you're, quote, just doing your jobs and you're trying to stay away from all the bad stuff. Possibly, yeah, but still, it's not good enough, guys. How can you sleep at night knowing that you're supporting the nefarious activities that are ruining, destroying people's lives? You know, look what's going on in Kulak, for example, and so on. Right, here we go. So this is the top line is her, you know. I said, thank you for clarifying that it was again George Birmingham who unlawfully terminated yet another valid appeared court hearing. Secondly, may I inquire as to why, other than that old worn-out excuse, but I'm just doing my job, why did court service staff comply with an illegitimate and unlawful instruction, which in effect comprises an act that obstructs or otherwise interferes with justice, which is a crime, it's a criminal offence? We will need a valid, acceptable explanation from Mr. Birmingham by close of business today as to why he did so in violation of his constitutional oath and of court rules, failing which he will be facing another criminal complaint to Gardaí and yet another criminal summons in the district court. Now, when we first did these criminal summonses, guys, first we did criminal complaints to the guards. We actually did get some traction out of it, and it shook the system up, you know, shockingly. There was an article done in the Irish Times, you know, the man who knows how to make a citizen's arrest, that was me. They didn't get it quite right. It wasn't necessarily citizen's arrest so much as what we call the common informer process, which is where an individual can prosecute anyone who works for the state, but in a one-day process, going straight into the district court, no lawyers, no guards, no money involved, nothing. But of course, they're doing everything they can to circumvent and block and thwart those applications going through now. And it's now become a decision between how much time do I want to waste proving a point and actually sullying myself by engaging with people who really, I honest to God, if I could, I'd have them all sent off to a leper colony somewhere and leave them to fight it out amongst themselves, because they have no place in decent, respectable society, these people. Yes, so I think I just read that one, didn't I? Let's just double check. Yes. So let's have a look at the next text. This is Judge Sean O'Donovan down in the bottom right, you know, hard man from Cork, so he thinks. You know, they wanted his name taken off the proceedings, which is what I was objecting to. So, okay. So with regards to your query concerning the status of the appeal and so on, that's the top. Then I say, this is absolutely not correct. She said the court directs that you should do this as they did in 2019. I said, this is absolutely not correct. Indeed, if Mr. Birmingham said this, we would declare it an outright lie. We must call a spade, folks, okay? Because the fact is that he walked out of the court, or actually trotted, really, shuffled, trottled, stumbled, after again attempting to unlawfully silence me and after refusing to explain how and why the title of those proceedings had been changed in order to facilitate and accommodate an outrageous criminal fraud by Michael McGrath, Judge of the High Court. Now, you might say, what's the point of writing all this to a court service staff? Well, of course, I'm not just writing it to her. I'm also writing it to all of the people who were copied into this email, and there were dozens of them, officials, the Minister for Justice, colleagues and friends in the pro-justice community, and I'm putting it right up to their faces. This is the job you're doing, missus. Well, I'm just following orders, yeah, and these are the orders you're following, and this is the damage you're doing. I'm not going to let you just slide away at the end of your day's work and pretend that nothing happened, because something did happen, and you were involved in it, even in a minor role. This appeal is itself a challenge to that very act of criminal fraud by which Michael McGrath, the judge, effectively created a second set of case documentation that does not correspond to the original title, Stephen Manning versus Circuit Court Judge Sean O'Donovan. Let's keep repeating this scoundrel's name. Yeah, this criminal scoundrel, Sean O'Donovan. For me to acknowledge that secondary fraud as a valid title would be to render myself complicit in Michael McGrath's primary fraud, and I will not do that. You hold a high moral ground, if you know what I mean, folks. You keep the hold the high moral ground. The title needs to be listed under its original legally valid format, and my appeal against the attempted fraudulent change by McGrath should then be delivered under that original title. Otherwise, we have the ridiculous situation whereby any appeals against the judge-sponsored criminality that is going on now will be formally listed in the Irish domestic courts under a knowingly fraudulent title that should not legally actually exist. Is anyone up there at the CCJ familiar with the legal principle that fraud vitiates everything? No? It's utterly ridiculous, guys. Absolutely, utterly ridiculous. Legal principles override all of our laws and constitutions, and they're not just ignoring them, they're trashing them. For example, the stated reason, not the true reason, why the Supreme Court refused to accept my paperwork involving George Birmingham's last venal stunt in 2019, in this case. So I took an appeal to the Court of Appeal about Birmingham's misbehavior. And they refused the appeal precisely because your Supreme Court appeal does not match the title of the order being challenged. McGrath had previously shut down the associated case by falsely pretending to hold a judgment hearing on May the 18th, 2018, that never actually took place. I hope all of you solicitors and barristers out there are reading this and scratching your heads in bewilderment, or would that be too much to ask, because you already know this is the sort of ridiculous, stupid, criminal, petty, juvenile activity that goes on daily up there. Neither was I, the moving party, advised of any such hearing, and no courtroom was booked for it. Nevertheless, it was reported in the Irish Times by the devious Anne Corcoran as if she was personally in attendance, and then backed up by fraudulent papers issued out of the court service. Imagine that. Fraud, lies, and collusion by the High Court, the court service, and the media. As they say, you couldn't make this up, right? All of this detail and the proofs are contained in our published book, Criminality in the Irish Courts and the Absence of the Rule of Law, which Birmingham, McGrath, Daly, O'Donnell, and some 40 other proven to be criminally compromised Irish judges are all fully aware of. So, Birmingham's evasive claim that he doesn't recall does not hold much water, does it? Not unless he has dementia, which should preclude him, like Joe Biden, I suppose, from any sort of important public service, right? Again, stick it to them, guys. Hold your ground. You don't have to be, overtly offensive. You don't have to be cursing and swearing and using expletives, but call it as it is. These people are moral deviants of the highest order, and they depend upon all of the toadies and the lackeys in the system to keep them ensconced in their cozy ivory towers for life, Then she says, this is how you follow the procedure. If you had done that, but there was no activity. I said, first of all, there has been plenty of activity to date on our part, as I explained to you all, guys. Criminal summonses, complaints to the guards, an appeal to the Supreme Court, and all the rest of it. But it's just not what the court system would like to acknowledge. There's no mention of it, is there, in her response? So it's probably not on the file. Furthermore, this alleged direction of November 2019 was not stated in court. It is a belated contrivance that issued out of the Court of Appeal office, which likewise was a fraudulent concoction. It has no relation to what was said in court in November 2019. In any event, how can I lawfully participate in an appeal which was first properly listed by me under a valid title, when the Court of Appeal refuses to acknowledge that original valid title in favour of the fraudulently concocted new unapplied for title fraudulently cooked up by McGrath in open violation of Superior Court rules. Either do things lawfully or stop the perverse pretense, please. Sorry, guys, there's a lot of P's in there and F's and to get my lips around, okay? And finally, and then she says, as of today, where the appeal was listed in the dormant review list, the direction of the President is that your appeal is struck out. I respond, what a surprise, eh? Struck out while the applicant has been unlawfully blocked online. Yet another criminal act of avoidance being piled upon the previous ones. Why are we not surprised? For the record, I do not accept or acknowledge this unlawful diktat from a so-called judge who has lost whatever authority and privilege he claims to have by being a toady for the political establishment. You court service people too should be ashamed of yourselves. Are we to understand that the directions of the President are to be obeyed at any cost, even at cost of your consciences and your souls, despite the fact that they are demonstrably unlawful, amoral, and in direct breach of all of your various codes of conduct, of ethics, and of court rules? Not to mention your own personal integrity and obligations to truth. These career liars and moral deviants, corrupt judges, could not operate without your blind and servile obedience, could they? Mr. Birmingham is a criminal rogue and has no authority whatsoever over me or any decent law-abiding individual. All he has is the compliance of those who have sold their souls to the system to enforce his illegal spoutings, right? Bear with me, guys. I think this is the last section. Yes. She then tells me I've got, oh, thank you very much, liberty to re-enter upon finding a motion, filing this and doing that and affidavits here. In other words, jump through all these hoops and we'll allow you the liberty of the... So I just responded now bluntly. Nonsense and balderdash. Liberty to do what? Engage further with this diabolical pantomime? We have been through all of this before. If Birmingham thinks we are going to dance with the devil all over again, he is in for an inopportune surprise, starting with a broadcast of his shabby performance today. Furthermore, Birmingham says he doesn't recall. I say that if he doesn't recall all of this drama as previously played out in his court and documented in the aforesaid book with pictures, then he is not fit by way of mental incompetence to be the President of the Court of Appeal. If, as I suspect, he is outright lying, then I would say again that he is unfit on moral grounds to be a judge. Not to mention having a sociopathic personality, which should, in any moral society, preclude any such persons being in any positions of power or authority. Perhaps Mr. Birmingham should have stayed in politics. After all, Fine Gael have no problem with career liars and moral deviants, do they? As always, the direction of the court is to play the diabolical game by their perverse rules or suffer the consequences, eh? Birmingham et al. Seem to think there are no other alternatives. He might want to watch and learn. To be clear, we do not accept this so-called ruling by a criminally compromised individual who is posing as a purported judge. Ultimately, it is us, by way of our sovereign authority, who allow miscreants such as Birmingham to serve our Constitution. When they do not serve the Constitution and violate our trust, they become obsolete and redundant and unworthy of respect and obedience by any right-thinking person. All criminal sociopaths and psychopaths are destined for a sad and sorry end, mark my words. Please ensure that Mr. Birmingham is apprised of this advisory, trusting the position is clear. And with that, I did get confirmation back from them that they had forwarded it to him, but not only to him, I made sure it went to all of the official sources just to cause consternation and make them realize, oh my God, if nothing else, it'll make them think twice about coming after me or my family again, as they've done in the past, or at least it's forcing them into a form of sort of reluctant respect. If it's not respect, it's caution, and it starts bringing them at least nearer to an element of justice instead of this rampant abuse of the law and the Constitution that we see going on daily. Now, I've just one figure slide here, guys, that I want to bring up. It's because really this is at the heart of what I see as my current mission at the moment. It's trying to explain to people the mechanics of evil and of course, the mechanics for good. Very simply, based on this notion of concept, plan, and action, and the idea that if you are in an institution, part of the tacit agreement, if you like, part of the agreement between you and the institution is that you will obey the diktats of the institution and protect the agents of the institution and the structures and all the rest of it in return for a pay packet at the end of the week. I mean, that's sort of basically it. Now, this is all well and good if the institution and the people who head it are all saints, you know, and wonderful people that you admire and respect. But when they're not, the dynamics don't change, do they? You know, you've got a job in a pharmaceutical company, or you've got a job in civil service, or, you know, you're subject to the corrupt instructions of a guard superintendent or something of that nature. It's a tough one, isn't it, guys? Isn't it? But the point I'm trying to make is that we've got to start thinking about this, because society is changing, guys. All this stuff going on in America with Trump and the assassination and, you know, the deep state actors and all this sort of stuff that's going on. There is a huge change happening in the world. Part of it is being fueled by the nefarious activities of the globalists, and part of it is being fueled by the awakening masses who are starting to stir out of their traditional ignorance and apathy and starting to realize, oh my God, if we can't trust the authorities to guide us and rule us and, you know, and make, administer the law and everything, then who's going to do it? Well, the answer to that, guys, is you are, and I am, and anybody who's got a conscience and who's willing to step up the plate, because the ones that don't are, whether they like it or not, or whether they agree it or not, are complicit. So very simply, I'll just pull this up for a second, guys. Freeze it if you want to. I'm sorry the lists are a little bit vague on the left, or the vices and the virtues, but very simply, 3 necessities for evil. There has to be an urge to dominate, that which is the equivalent of a sort of a sociopathic behavior or a personality, the urge to dominate as opposed to nurture, okay? The means to dominate, okay? So structures and systems, and I'm saying this right now, guys, the means to dominate comes through these big corporations, big government, all institutions that are larger than about 70 people will devolve into a tyranny of some form, autocracies, tyranny of some form, and that requires you to surrender your autonomy and possibly your conscience, okay? And thirdly, material rewards for domination. So you get rewarded with money, power, possessions, prestige, position, advancement for serving the diabolicals, as I call them, serving the institution. On the other hand, 3 necessities for good. Number 1, the urge to nurture or empathetic behavior. Number 2, an individual decision to nurture. So you decide you're going to do it anyway, whether or not you're told to do otherwise. And the nurturing act itself is its own reward. You're not doing it for money, in other words, although if it comes, that's nice. But if you're in a job where you nurture and help and support people, get paid for it, all well and good. But it shouldn't be because of the money. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's a vocation, in other words, not a job. Okay. Now we're going to bump through the last few slides. Here we go. Now, the reason we're pulling this man up is because, if you remember earlier, I showed you the document they were relying on that Birmingham is reading from. Well, this document was composed by this guy, Barrister Oisin Clarke. He's just another one. I'm calling it there, professional liar, fraudster, and co-conspirator, or just another toady of the establishment, which is worst, you know, that he's consciously and deliberately going along with this fraud. And then I'm not going to go through the document, but the rest of the document basically says the DPP's office, who's and standing in for this judge, and the chief prosecution solicitor's office, you know, they've come in to defend this criminal judge O'Donovan. That's why they wanted his name taken off the paperwork. They don't want people like Manning getting out there broadcasting this everywhere and naming this guy. And that's why I keep doing it. But he went ahead and just lied right the way through his teeth, made statements like, there are no grounds of appeal here whatsoever. What's the word? We object to every ground of appeal Manning made. It's a bit like, you know, the Aaron Brady appeal recently. What was it? 40 or 50 grounds of appeal, every single one of them thrown out. Nothing. And I mean, they've worked for years in these appeals, all solid legal grounds, and they all get thrown out by a compromised judge. What is it? Compromise. Let's call them what they are: corrupt judge. You know. So I just want to put his face up there, because we're going to get to barristers in a moment, guys. I wanted to be. No. And here we go. The last couple of slides, guys. Now, let's see. I'll just. Now here we have Dermot O'Codja. For God's sake, Dermot, for God's sake, will you call me up one day and tell me how to pronounce your second name properly? I do know people mostly by the first names, but anyway. So anyway, Dermot, very proud Irish speaker. Cut a long story short, he was in Cork last week, and after 3 years after the alleged offence, and what was the offence? He had simply displayed a banner reading, "End the lockdown." The guards blocked off this bridge. There was only Dermot and a couple of other people there with him. Luckily, someone was there and filmed what happened. But the guards, cock and bull, the prosecuting guard, he lied blatantly under oath and unlawfully refused to disclose evidence. In fact, they committed criminal damage by deleting it. Now, this has happened to me in the past too. You know, evidence that could implicate the guards in wrongdoing gets deleted. I hope, Danny, I hope you're dressed, are you? Okay, good lad. Yeah, sorry, guys. So Dermot, he goes into court, and again, it's just another example. Dermot also, he's up to date with the law. For me personally, the only slightly depressing thing going on here is that, you know, I've been through this all over before myself, you know, different cases and everything. And it's a bit frustrating for me to have literally suffered all the punishments, all of the wasted time, years and years of frustration and stress and anxiety, dealing with fraud, you know, corrupt members of the establishment, guards who lie, DPP solicitors who concoct false affidavits, judges who refuse to take action against them, etc., etc., etc. But at least the positive that's coming out of this is that as a vocal source like Dermot, or his colleague Ken there standing next to him, as they encounter these same experiences and they in turn add their voices to the things that I've already documented in the books we've done and the videos and everything. This is, you know, if we're going to have 1,000 people to go through this before the penny drops in the general public, then let's keep pushing these 1,000 people to the front, get in there, get into the courts, believe as long as you can that you're going to get justice, if it means that that's going to keep you determined to keep going through this process until eventually you throw your hands up in exasperation and consternation and disgust and say what Dermot has been saying. And I'd urge people to go to Corruption Awareness Ireland. Yes, I think it's there on the slide here, isn't it? I have to pull myself out of there for a second. Hold on. Anyway, Anti-Corruption Task Force, Corruption Awareness Ireland, get in there and look at this video and listen to the way Dermot explains what's happened to him. It's utterly ridiculous. He gets convicted. The judge in this particular case is Judge Mary Dorgan, and I am saying that Judge Mary Dorgan apparently either, number one, doesn't know the law, number two, doesn't understand the law, number three, doesn't know how to apply the law, or number four, just couldn't give a fiddler's about the law, which is commonplace. In other words, a typical, morally compromised, politically appointed Irish judge, and shame on you, Mrs. Dorgan. I don't know where this arrogant look you've got is coming from, but isn't that also typical? Arrogance and corruption seem to go hand in hand. I've often asked agents of the state, are you actually trained in arrogance? Do you have to be arrogant? Is it a requirement for the job? Or does it just come with the territory? Disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful. I know you're not ashamed of yourself, but there will come a day, you know, there will come a day when, you know, even for people like you, we can only hope the penny will drop, you know. But in the meantime, you're destroying people's lives. You know you're doing it. and you're doing it with this sort of arrogant, contemptuous glee that sickens me personally, you know. And on to, oh yes, now the second last slide, guys. So the barristers are on strike, guys, okay? I hate it when this happens. I prepare these slides and then the text runs off the bottom, the most important part of the text. But anyway, this is again Diarmuid and Ken and colleagues, Rally for Justice at the CCJ in Dublin. We call on people to assemble outside Dublin CCJ at 11 a.m. on Wednesday the 24th. That's, by the time you see this, guys, it'll be tomorrow, okay? In a rally for justice. The rally will ask the protesting barristers group why they show no interest or concern for justice-related matters that affect the public. That is, if I can pull up, wait a minute, have I got it here? I might be able to pull it up here and read it. Here we go. Let's see if I can pull it. 1 second, guys. I'll read the last one. The rally will ask the protesting barristers group why they show no concern for justice and equality before the courts. And that's absolutely a fair statement, guys. It's absolutely a fair statement. My take on this barristers strike is good. Let them at it. Don't give them what they want. Leave them on strike. The longer they stay on strike, the more disruption is caused to the courts. They're not there to service justice, guys. They're there to make money. And they're part of a franchise that involves the judges. The judges and the barristers are in a clique called the benchers. And they look after each other's interests, guys. It's all taxpayers' money being funneled through this so-called justice system to keep them all in clover. All right? We've got to wake up and realize, guys, that these so-called authorities, all that they have, where they have an expertise in this law, and one day we'll do a video on what is law, because at the moment it is lawfare. It is a bunch of rules and regulations made up by the establishment as they go along, as it suits them, for other than moral and humane reasons to protect the establishment, okay? Well, once we work all this out, as you'll see on the last slide, those of you that feel that you might, is this the last slide? Yes, it is, guys. So sorry about the extra logo top right here. I can remove it, but it's all right. I'll leave it up there, Integrity Ireland. If you do want to support our work and mission, crisiscultcoup.com, guys, just going over there. There's a short little introduction video. If you'd like to help, that would be much appreciated. All help is considered. We will also, over on the right here, the People's Tribunal of Ireland. I'm not going to go into it now, guys. I've got to finish the recording. Thank you, everyone, for attending, listening. I hope this is of some use to people. It's about education, guys. All right. It's about educating people. It's about getting people to understand the reality, the truth of what's going on. Not the pretense, not the great lie, not the delusions, not the false authorities that were all being ordered and forced to serve. And with all of these things coming down the corridor, you know, the world had the pandemic treaties and all this sort of stuff, guys. We've got to take back the power and the control ourselves, guys. All right. There are ways and means to do it. One way is to go and read the Crisis Colour Coup book, which you'll see advertised on that link. Look at the People's Tribunal of Ireland, guys. We're going to probably start promoting that again shortly, because it is a solution to people going before the courts. Like Dermot, Dermot could have gone into the courts already with a document, an authoritative document from a legal, lawful entity, which the courts would, I'm saying, they will dare not challenge. So we'll leave it at that, guys. God bless to everyone. Thank you for your time. I will promise to do my best to try and get back onto the regular Sunday schedule. And until we talk again, God bless, and we'll speak soon.